let's say you work for the government and you have a job, but a part of your job is being required to dress and shower in front of the opposite biological sex. And if you don't like it, you lose your job. We're going to talk about an actual case that we at the Pacific Justice Institute have taken on in the second half of the show, and you're going to find it very eye-opening. But the first half of the show, I want to talk to someone who is from a different state that we often don't talk about because there's not a lot of problems in it, and that's the state of Texas. It's the State Representative Matt Krause, and we're going to talk about some of the positive things that are taking place in Texas that other states like California, Washington, Illinois, New York could really learn from. We often think that all states are the same. They're not the same, and I think you're going to find this really encouraging. Welcome to the show, State Representative Krause.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Brad. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to have you on. Now, we actually go back a lot farther in a way that I didn't know until you told me, and that involves a time when I was speaking at a college that you were attending. Give us the story. I think the audience will enjoy this.
Yeah. For college, even though I'm a tech, I came out to San Diego to play some basketball at a school. Then it was called Christian Heritage College, but now it's San Diego Christian College. And you were nice enough to make the trip down my senior year, so it was probably 2002, 2003. And you were talking about constitutional litigation and using your degree and background to help open up doors for evangelism and truly work on issues that would continue to advance and defend the traditional values that we all hold dear. And so you were at our chapel, and so I actually met you afterwards. Thanked you for your time because I thought about going to law school. I thought about getting involved in politics, but I never thought about maybe using my law degree to defend the faith and advance the faith. And so you were kind of the one who introduced me to that. I ended up going to law school, working for a similar constitution litigation firm for 5 years before getting into office. So I've always appreciated your words that you had in chapel that day and kind of the Lord using that spark to get me interested in constitutional law and how we could use that to protect our cherished values.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I was so encouraged, inspired when you walked up to me. Here you are, an effective, highly respected state representative in the state of Texas. And when you shared that with me, it was a real encouragement to me because we never know. When we're talking to groups, we're sharing with groups, whether in churches. I do a lot of guest preaching at churches. They speak at graduation ceremonies. We never really see and know all that God's doing. And it was so exciting to just to know that I was a small part in that plan that God had for you, and you becoming what you are today, which is a state representative in the great state of Texas. Now, I have to admit my bias up front. Though I was born in California and I live in California, I did grow up a lot in Texas. I went to Texas A&M University, where I also went to University of Texas School of Law. Worked for a Texas senator. I even worked for Ross Perot for a while. So I'm very biased towards Texas. That said, Representative Krause, Texas is without question a model in many ways for the rest of the country when it comes to legislation respecting the sanctity of human life, parents' rights, family, religious freedom. So I want to inspire the audience with some good news, decisive good news, that they can look at from the state of Texas, not with the goal of everyone move to Texas. It's sort of happening on its own. But
That's right.
But instead, with the attitude of, hey, these are some things that maybe we could push in our state legislature, wherever it may be, Minnesota, Wisconsin, wherever, to really have a positive impact and to make a difference in our state. So let's start off with pro-life, sanctity of human life. Representative Krause, what has Texas done and what progress have they made with regard to the sanctity of human life and protecting the unborn and helping also women in crisis who need competent and responsible care?
That's right. That was kind of one of the animating issues that got me involved in politics and wanting to run for office, was that pro-life issue. I feel like if you get that issue wrong, you kind of get everything else wrong
Right.
as well. In a society that doesn't value and protect those innocent human lives, I think is on a downward trajectory. So I've been honored to work with many of my great colleagues for the last 3 sessions in the Texas House to pass a lot of strong pro-life bills. Just this last session, we ended dismemberment abortions. And a lot of people hear the word abortion and all you think is it's a group of cells or a clump of tissue. But no, these are actual human beings, little boys and little girls growing inside their mom's womb. And so one of the most common procedures for abortionists to use to take the life of those children in the second trimester is a dismemberment abortion, where they literally tear the arms and legs, the limbs from the child. Usually that child bleeds to death, which is how they expire and how they're killed. And we just wanted to say, you know what, we're not going to have that practice in Texas. And it was one of the very few issues that it was hard for the Democrats, even though they voted against the measure, it was really hard for them to argue against or argue for that procedure. It's so gruesome, it's so barbaric that even they had to acknowledge that, but they still couldn't go far enough to say we should outlaw it. But that was one of the areas we had great success on.
Okay, now Representative Krause, I don't want to. I have to interrupt you on this one because I want to make sure we really digest this. Now we're talking about something so heinous, so outrageous. Are you telling me this was not unanimously passed in the state of Texas? You're telling me that the other side of the aisle voted against this legislation to protect the dismemberment of little boys, unborn babies, little unborn boys and girls far along in development?
Yeah, incredible as it was, as I said, there were people on the other side of the aisle from me. They were crying, talking about it. They said it's a horrible procedure. They wish that none of these would ever happen to these little kids. Yet when it came time to vote, there were only about 5 or 6 individuals from the other party that of where I am that actually voted to stop that practice. And so even with this horrible, barbaric, and gruesome as it is, you still had individuals voting to continue that because they didn't want to do anything to infringe upon the rights or the choices of women, even though half those being aborted and going through this gruesome practice are women themselves. So
right, and you say the rights and choices of women. I mean, the reality is, I bet most women don't even really know. They're not really fully informed by, the outfits of Planned Parenthood, et cetera, of exactly what is going to be taking place. They say, okay, we're going to terminate the pregnancy. They're not probably told, okay, we're going to first dismember, cut off the arm, cut off the leg, crush the skull. They're not probably told those things. So
I think you're exactly right. And one other thing we did in Texas that if you don't have this in your state, I would recommend 2 years before I got in there was a sonogram law saying, okay, if you're going to have perform an abortion, you at least have to do a sonogram first. We found that overwhelmingly the women, when they see that that's a human living actual baby inside of them, clump of tissues or cells, they choose life because they love that child. And so that's another very effective way to promote the culture of life, is just by having those sonograms.
Sonograms are just letting women know what the truth is, what they're doing. So they're an informed consumer. I call this consumer protection. And now, real quick, let's move on before we run out of time. There's also some reform regarding foster care and adoption. Real quickly, summarize what legislative reform took place here. This is fantastic.
That's right. We were seeing states all across the country who were shutting down adoption agencies and foster care agencies just because they were religious in nature and said, you know what, we don't want to place children in homes that have same-sex parents or single-parent homes or whatever it might be. We're not going to do that. And we were seeing other states step in and saying, no, you're going to have to do that or not be in business.
Right.
So Texas said, no, you can still have your sincerely held religious beliefs, run your adoption agencies, foster care homes, and not be worried about the government coming in and shutting you down.
Yeah, and I tell people this is really important because we see states that are passing laws that are effectively shutting down, like a Catholic adoption agency or an evangelical foster care agency that are really working with parents and families in accordance with their beliefs. and the government shutting him down because the government doesn't approve of their values and beliefs, and even if it impacts the welfare of the children. I think that's really great. That's a definite move in the right direction. What about religious liberty? What progress have you made there?
Yeah, we were really able to strengthen the religious liberty protection for certain professions such as nurses, for pharmacists, for even attorneys. And so nurses, we make sure that they don't have to participate in a procedure that violates their conscience or their sincerely held religious beliefs. That could be abortion. That could be other things. Pharmacists, they don't have to dispense drugs or abortifacients that might violate their sincerely held religious beliefs. For attorneys, the ABA, the American Bar Association, had come out with rules basically saying you could be in violation of discrimination based on certain civic or social clubs, such as which church you go to, or if you're part of the Christian Legal Society. That could be cause for you to be found having discriminated against somebody. So can you sit for the bar? Could you continue to have your license? And Texas just wanted to say you can still have your sincerely held religious beliefs, practice your profession, and not worry about the government coming in and shutting you down.
Right. So I could be a part of a church that has traditional beliefs. I could be a Boy Scout leader if I wanted, or whatever. And in the state of Texas, as an attorney, I'm protected. Unfortunately, because of the American Bar Association, that's not the same in other states. I'm really glad you did this, because we have occupations, the medical, legal, a number of occupations where those who are promoting religious intolerance and bigotry are going to trying to basically squeeze out these people of faith from these occupations, also in psychology as well. So I really respect you and what you're doing. Folks, we have a lot of the country is really messed up, but and we at Pacific Justice are fighting hard in those battles. But let's also take a look at where things are not so messed up, where we can learn and have positive change in our legislatures. Thank you again, State Representative Matt Krause. I really appreciate you being on the show, and keep up the great work.
And thanks, Brad, and thanks again for the big role you played in helping me get to where I am today, even unknowingly. I really appreciate you, and y'all keep up the good work out there in California.
You too. Take care. Thanks.
So my name is Adelmo. When I was out there preaching, people didn't like the message and they called the police. I'm thankful to God for using the Pacific Justice Institute to keep me out there preaching the Word of God.
We at the Pacific Justice Institute are handling more and more cases just like Adelmo's, where people are being victimized because of intolerance because of their faith. We're committed to defending the fundamental civil rights of individuals, and we'd love to serve you and your community without charge. We'd like to give something very special to you. It's on our website, and it's a special article talking all about the 12 things you can do to protect your children or grandchildren from being taken by social workers. Folks, this is a real problem. Thousands and thousands of children are wrongfully taken by zealous social workers across the United States. And this is a very clear explanation on how you can protect your children, or you can help protect your grandchildren, or people you know who have children. Once again, you get this real easily by going to our website, which is pji.org. That's P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org. And once again, from the bottom of my heart and the many attorneys who are sacrificing so much, I want to thank you for those of you who decide to become a part of the team of the Pacific Justice Institute by supporting us on either a one-time or a monthly basis. Now, we have with us here in studio someone who is a part of our team. He actually heads up our Southern California office. His name is Michael Peffer. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Brad. Thanks.
Now, Michael, we have a very hot case right now dealing with a federal law enforcement officer. And it's not the normal case that people might expect dealing with a federal law enforcement officer. It's involving an egregious invasion and violation of privacy. Tell us more.
Right, Brad. Thanks so much. This is one of those cases where we can see the world change around us, the new paradigm that people can announce what sex they are other than that with which they've been born.
Right.
And in this case, we have a female federal law enforcement officer who obviously wears a uniform and is required to carry weaponry, to do everything that a law enforcement officer does.
And she does her job well.
She does it well. She likes her job, and this is something that she's been doing for a while, quite some time here. And things were going well until one of the male officers identified as a woman. And
wait a minute. Let me make sure I got this. I was following you real clear up here. You said until one of the male officers, so we're talking about a biological man.
Correct.
Every gene in his body says he's a man. His body looks like a man, but he says that feels like he's a woman. Right?
That's correct.
Okay.
He believes himself to be a woman.
He has that gender identity dysphoria,
Exactly.
dysphoria, where you think of something that's not real. Okay, go ahead.
That's right. And look, we have compassion towards these folks, and they're dealing with genuine things going on in their brain.
Yeah, he didn't we're not assuming he just made this up to be a pain in the neck for some people around him. He probably has a real mental condition. He needs love, understanding, counseling. Totally. But the story doesn't just end there, does it?
It doesn't. Unfortunately, if it was just a matter of talking about semantics and things about what we believe and what they believe, it would be a relatively straightforward matter. But this involves a locker room because because as being an officer, there's things that it's not safe to come to work uniformed in this specific agency. And so they change when they get there.
Why is it not safe to come to work in a uniform in this agency?
Because people can then identify the officer, and it's just their practice is not to dress at home and come to work dressed in a uniform.
In other words, it's for their own protection as well. Okay, gotcha.
That's right. It's really for the officer's protection.
Okay, so they come to work, dress regular clothes, then they change in the locker room into their uniform.
That's
right?
correct.
And in locker room, once again, they have showers.
That's correct.
Okay, continue on.
It's designed like any other locker room, and it is as it has been from time immemorial, divided between the sexes. There's a male locker room and a female locker room. And so it goes until this day when the individual decided, nope, I'm going to be in the female locker room from now on. And so
he just announced that.
Well, he did it in conjunction with his employer. He asked for an accommodation, and he got the accommodation.
So his government employer, supervisor,
yes,
he says, look, I feel like I'm a woman. I want to go into the locker room where all the women are taking off their clothes, showering, and changing. And the supervisor said yes.
That's correct.
Okay. Michael, is there any federal law, that says all you have to do is just say you're something different than you are and you're going to be treated that way? Like, I say, like, I feel like I'm a woman, and therefore the federal government entitles me to such an opportunity or experience to go into the women's locker room. I mean, is that a federal mandate?
No, there is no federal law per se. Although I will say the federal circuits are sort of mixed on this. There are a few circuits who have held that this kind of accommodation is protected under Title VII. And
now, Title VII says absolutely nothing about transgender individuals and letting the opposite sex strip in front of each other. So these are very liberal activist judges that the kind that I think has really been very problematic, and hopefully we'll see more of them replaced in the next few years by President Trump. But
yes,
in the meantime, though, we've got these kind of judges, we've got these kind of decisions coming down.
Yes.
And so that's why this case is not just a quick slam dunk, temporary restraint or motion for summary judgment gone. this actually has some legal complications as well as significance.
It sure does. And in fact, just to be clear on this issue of the circuits that have held that this is covered under Title VII,
Right.
I think it's arguable, in fact, the very opposite, that Title VII says that women get to be treated as women, and I think that assumes that they have a private place, to remove their clothing where only other females are there. And these courts are rewriting Title VII. Congress has not acted on this. So
Right.
I think that's very important, is that for decades there's been this argument within Congress about changing Title VII, but it has not been done.
Right.
So
Right.
the law is the law.
Right.
Except for these circuits who have decided.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point as far as what it was intended to do, and how this application, that is allowing men to go into women's locker rooms, actually gives less protection for women, less opportunity, because how many women can be expected to have a job where it says, oh, yes, you can work as a federal law enforcement officer, so long as you're also willing to strip naked in front of a biological man who more likely than not is turned on by looking at you. You're totally welcome to work for this. I mean, what reasonable, rational woman would want such a job and really be truly offered an equal opportunity? I mean, someone could say, well, a woman could go into the men's locker room and do the same thing. Well, it's not the same impact. And I think Title VII, the spirit of Title VII, which is, hey, let's give everyone an even playing field of opportunity, is irrefutably denied and violated when we're looking at this particular application, and these judicial activists out there who have ruled the wrong way regarding Title VII, I think is very apparent.
It is very apparent. And to get to our client, there's a lot that can be said about this,
Right.
the individual, and I don't want to get into too much detail here.
I know.
But our client believes, with a sincerely held religious belief, that God created male and female. She does not believe that God created people that are in between or on the other side or a mix of the two. She believes what the Bible teaches.
Right. And the significance of that is that when she sees that man with his clothes taken off completely standing in front of her, she cannot pretend and say, oh, that's a woman because he thinks of himself as a woman, so therefore I'm going to be dysphoric also. She has actual religious deep roots of conviction that she couldn't turn off, even if she was able to psych herself out to think that man who's stripped naked in front of her or is looking at her getting out of the shower is a woman. She has religious convictions that she could not deny, and that would definitely impact her. And also we have to realize something else too. I think it's real important, Michael. Many people don't realize this, but the studies all show that most transgender individuals, like men who say that they feel like they're woman, are still sexually attracted and turned on by women, by looking at women. That's the people we're talking about in these places. So yes, we need compassion, we need reasonable accommodation as is necessary, and to allow these people to be able to do their job and meet their obligations in the workplace. But we cannot allow people to violate the basic fundamental decency and humanity and the religious convictions of their fellow workers, particularly of female workers. So I think this is an important case. We at Pacific Justice, of course, we're representing her.
That's correct.
Any idea on the timetable, or is this probably going to take a while, huh?
We're going to be at this for a while. We're just in the process, and I will say that the law enforcement agency has responded to us in terms of trying to see if there's a way of accommodation, which all employers are required to do when there's a discrimination issue.
Right.
And they are participating in that. How it will turn out, that's yet to be determined. But we are representing this person free of charge. She came to us, and we're representing her. We're in for the long haul wherever this goes. But that's what Pacific Justice Institute does, as you know.
Yes. And folks, I want you to observe that we're not a sensational group that just wants to file a quick lawsuit and then move on. When we take on a case, when we take on a client anywhere in the United States, We do it with the understanding that this is a firm commitment all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary. And we do it all without charge. And the reason we're able to do it without charge is because of people out there like you that support our work. We have 5 offices. We do have hundreds of affiliated attorneys across the country, and we're having a real impact. In fact, our cases have more than doubled since this time last year. And it's because of you and people out there like you who are supporting our work. So thank you very much. So folks, there you have it. It's our God-given freedoms we're talking about. Now, let's choose to keep them. I'm Dacus of the Pacific Justice Institute. Have a great weekend.